Welcome back to the Football Show. A little bit later on, we'll be discussing that moment with Sergio Aguero because it was 8 years ago today. But right now, we are going to talk about a few years before that when Manchester United had been bossing Manchester, or indeed the Premier League, for some time. They'd pretty much had it all their own way. But then things changed. And what erupted was a real intensity and what became known as the noisy neighbours. There's the poster with Carlos Tevez, obviously having left United, crossed the city to go Manchester City. So, Gary, how much was that poster itself responsible for what became a real deep grudge between the two clubs?
Look, I think at that time, City were adopting a completely different approach. I think any player that United went to go for, City went for. So whether it be Nasri or Berbatov, there was a real sort of, battle going on behind the scenes in terms of City were trying to poke and sort of nudge and let sort of, us at United know that they were coming and that they weren't going to go away, and they were becoming more spiky with it. They started to be a little bit more sort of openly spiky with it, with obviously that poster, which I think you could take in two forms. You could say it's a lack of respect, or you could say it's good humour. Obviously, United at the time under Sir Alex Ferguson, massively successful.
Which way did he take it?
Club. I would say probably more the spiky way. But what I could feel, Jeff, and I left in 2010-11. Was that it was getting more and more difficult to fend City off year by year. They were getting closer. You could feel them getting closer. We were winning in the last minute against them a few times in Carabao Cup or League Cup games. And it just felt like they were just a little bit it was getting a little bit more uncomfortable towards the end of my sort of career at United, to the point where still United were more successful. Still United were getting to European Cup finals, but they were emerging. And what I always felt in those early years of Sheikh Mansour's sort of tenure was, how long would he be around? What really would he invest? Was this going to be a sort of a flash in the pan? Because obviously they'd had the Thai ownership previously, which had fallen away disastrously. So there's an element with City here. There was an element with City in sort of my sort of 20, 30 years, from the age of sort of 10 to say 40, where I always felt City were a little bit of they were a little bit, fake. They'd go for it a little bit, but it was all noise. The noisy neighbours. It was not really anything of substance. And I think it's only really, when Pep Guardiola came, when I fully thought, they're settling in here, they're stabilising, they're buying clubs all over the world, they're continuing to invest. I mean, yesterday they announced a partnership, or 2 days ago, with a club in Belgium. And I think it's only in this last 2 or 3 years that I've thought, actually, these aren't going away. They're here for the long term. I think up until that point, I think we were talking about potentially, Abu Dhabi coming into the Premier League for obviously political reasons, coming in obviously to expand their football ownership and sports ownership, trying to change the image of their own country. All those things that I think everybody thought, but no one really knew how long they were going to hang around for. And I think now doesn't seem to be any doubt that they do seem to be here for the long term. But in those early days, it was a completely different approach. They're a lot more smooth and silky in the way in which they operate now. Manchester City, they do things pretty well. Whereas in those early days, it was a lot more sort of what would be spiky. Gary Cook was a different type of CEO than Ferran Soriano, and different type of approach to things.
But did it work? I mean, the fact that it was Tevez, could that poster have been any more provocative? And did it get under your skin? Did it get under the players at Manchester United's skin, and indeed the manager?
No, I think the only problem I had with Tevez, to be fair, I mean, let's be clear here. Tevez for a year with Ronaldo and Rooney was just breathtaking. It was out of this world. It really was. Not just because of the actual quality of the players, but there was a real selfish, horrible, nasty determination to those three. Ronaldo in a different way on the pitch, in the sense that he wouldn't sort of go around kicking people, hassling people, harassing people, hustling. He was sort of, immense in terms of his sort of his performance levels. But Rooney and Tevez, they were street fighters, but with unbelievable ability. And there was something of that three that just to me feels like you talk about the best three in the Premier League, best front three in the Premier League, or best three players. You'll never beat those three for me. You can talk about Mane, Salah, and Firmino. I love them to bits, and Sterling and Aguero and Sané at Liverpool, City, sorry. But you look at that front three of Tevez, Rooney, Ronaldo in their peak was out of this world. What annoyed me about Tevez was he downed tools in his second season, started sitting on the treatment bed, started coming out late for training, started messing around. He was playing the club, and I couldn't stand that, particularly as I was at the time, which was a ferocious, Manchester United person on the inside. Never thought of anything else in my life, only United every single day. And the idea that someone would sort of come into that changing room and sort of not just be at the best. I understood that he had circumstances, but his people were in his ear all the time. He was so he was so led by his people, and that it was always going to come to an end like it did. And I felt disappointed that as a professional that he didn't act the right way. I never had a problem with players leaving the club if they were sort of David Beckham left the club, or Cristiano Ronaldo left the club, Ruud van Nistelrooy left the club. Great players, but there was a way to leave the club and there was a way to behave when you were there. So the problem I have with Tevez wasn't that he went to play for Manchester City, which in itself is a problem for me, but that wasn't the main issue. It was the way in which I think it just played out in that last few months. I didn't like it.
Graham, a couple of points to put you on the back of what Gary says there. You've played and managed in cities where your nearest rivals are in the same city. How much worse does it make it, or indeed more unsettling, when they do start to make a bit of noise, as Sir Alex would say? And also, at what point did you start to take Manchester City seriously, as Gary said? At what point did you think, hang on, they are not going away?
Yeah, if you're first, it's not bad. It's healthy competition. Okay, the fact, City are a big football club on the world stage right now. And I think you have to say that, okay, Man United could spend more money than anybody else until maybe Chelsea came along. And then, obviously, lastly, City came along. And the challenge was very obvious from day one, because arguably this family that own Man City, if not the richest family in the world, second or third. So the challenge was always going to be there. And then I think the suspicion around them, why are they there? And I think you only have to go to that part of East Manchester now and see the infrastructure that they've put up there, not just around the football club. They have spent a hell of a lot of money in Manchester. Manchester economy, which in East Manchester, as Gary will well know, is not most affluent of areas. They have spent big there, and that can only be better for the immediate community. And they have shown they're here for the long term, and that's scary for everybody else. Okay, the financial fair play situation might damage them in the short term, but it looks like they're going to be here for a very long time. And I only see it as healthy. In the same city, great, bring it on. And, competition makes you strive to be better. And that's how, not just in the football world, that's how the world should be. Someone opens a shop next to yours, doing the same, selling the same, it makes you better. I mean, City hadn't won the league since 67, 68 with Francis Lee, Summerby, and that fabulous team. And yeah, they had good teams along the way, but nothing that could sustain the challenge over a long period of time. City aren't going anywhere now. As long as that family are interested, because they, if you imagine it, are a group of people that are used to getting their own way. They're used to being top dogs in whatever field they go into. And football will be the exact same for them. They get an enormous profile out of it. And I don't see them, no matter what damage or if any damage to get out of this fair play charge they're facing, financial fair play, I see them being around for a long time and being a major force. And for United, suck it up, because they ain't going anywhere. And I see it as a good thing.
Yeah, Graham, I just,
Gary,
Jeff, on that, I think, just on that, Graham makes, I think, 2 or 3 really good points there. I think Manchester United, to be fair, and Sir Alex, they did welcome challenge. Not like it, but I think that he welcomed the challenge of sort of Jose Mourinho at Chelsea or Arsene Wenger at Arsenal or Rafa Benitez at Liverpool. I think he always sort of accepted that new challenge and that new sort of force that was emerging and wanted it. Blackburn in the mid-90s as well. I think that ultimately that was the case, and I think Sir Alex really sort of enjoyed those matches becoming bigger in the last few years. The point that Graham makes around what City have done over in the east of Manchester is an important one, and you just sometimes have to hold your hand up and say it's pretty impressive. What you used to see over there and what you see now is something that I think is met with envy in football clubs all around the world. And when I think of Manchester United and the land that obviously Manchester United own around their football club, there should be a Manchester United world around there. They should be influencing education. They should be influencing communities. There should be entertainment for the public. It should be a real experience of Manchester United around that stadium. So Old Trafford has been allowed to tire in this last 5 to 10 years. In the last 5 or 10 years, the team's been a little bit tiring as well, which is a bigger problem. But the stadium is starting to tire and look old, and it needs investment. But not just that. Around the area of Manchester United's ground, there is a huge opportunity to create a Manchester United experience, something that can really influence not just Manchester, because Manchester United's reach is global. It touches people all over the world. Something that really, Old Trafford is a special place for players to come and play, for fans to watch football, but it could be so much more special. And if you just tap into a little bit of what City have done over there, with a far lesser name, with a sort of far more difficult hand to play, the opportunities for United are big when it comes to, but they've got to see, they've got to have the sort of strategy and the ambition to deliver a Manchester United and what it can be around there. And I think the City owners, to be fair, do have a vision of what they want their football club to be and their football product to be around the world, whereas Manchester United feels a little bit more insular at this moment in time.
Gary, could have got a lot for you. Jeff, can I just tell a quick story? It could have been a lot worse for you. I went to Dubai, I don't know, 12 or 13 years ago. Stayed in the Atlantis Hotel, arrived early afternoon, walked around the hotel with my wife and my son, and went into the Nobu restaurant, which was empty just after lunch. And on the way out, there were some people, I was aware of some people at the bar. On the way out, someone came over, introduced themselves. Then a lady joined us, and she introduced herself as Amanda. I'm a Liverpool supporter, she said. So then, during the conversation, she said, I'm responsible for taking the Abu Dhabi family to Man City. And I said, but 5 minutes ago you said you're a Liverpool supporter. Why do you not take them to Liverpool? She says, I tried, and Gillette and Hicks were so difficult to deal with, they just walked away in the end. So you should be thanking your lucky stars. That dosh didn't end up in Liverpool.
That's a great story, Graham, and I can see the sweat running down Gary as we speak. Would that have been worse, Gary, if it was Liverpool?
Yeah, but I think we've always been aware. Manchester United. Yeah, look, we've always been aware. I think Liverpool are still ripe for being bought at this moment in time, Graham, because I think ultimately the owners there have got money, but I don't think they've got what would be the money of obviously a Manchester City owners or the PSG owners. And I think at this moment in time, Manchester United have always been challenged by rich ownership. Look at Blackburn in the sort of mid-90s under Sir Alex Ferguson, that is, by the way. Chelsea under Roman Abramovich. And I think it's right that clubs should be allowed to be investing and if they bring sort of value to the community and to the area, which is obviously what Jack Walker did at Blackburn. And, the Abu Dhabi people have done at Manchester City. They've invested not just obviously in a football team and in players, they've invested in the actual infrastructure and what's going on around the ground. And that is my disappointment at Manchester United, that Manchester United have a huge influence globally, far beyond Manchester City, like you wouldn't believe. But I don't believe they sort of that power is sort of used as much as it can be in terms of affecting and impacting as many people as it could, particularly locally around Manchester, but also beyond that.